a flat tire, a car mechanic, a spare napkin, and the secret to the top 1% of all American wealth. It was a Monday morning, 6 a.m. to be exact. I got out of bed, threw on a pot of coffee, and got dressed. Normally, if I said that I was looking forward to work on a Monday morning, I'd be lying. But this Monday, it was different because I had off. Now, one would typically do something exciting on their day off, like going to a sporting event or possibly spending time with family and friends. No, not for me though, because my day was devoted to getting my tire replaced on my Chevy Malibu. At about 9 a.m., I headed over to my local car mechanic, stood in line for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then the manager checked me in. I told him that I needed a new tire put on my car because the one that I had on the passenger side, it was leaking for a couple days straight. In return, he said that we have two options on how we could repair it. Unfortunately, they were backed up and his main mechanic wouldn't be able to get it done until later that week on Thursday. The other option would be for his senior mechanic to complete the work during his lunch break today. The catch was that the senior mechanic's labor rate was double that of the main technician. Obviously, I had to go with the second option because I needed my car later that week for work. After signing the paperwork and agreeing to the deal, I sat down in the waiting room reflecting on what just happened. I grabbed a spare napkin lying on the end of the table and began writing down what I would later find out to be an equation that transformed my life. An equation so powerful that it would change my perspective on how money is made, it would lead to the creation of my businesses and help me retire off of my assets just a year later. It's the very rule of thumb that only the 1% know and use in order to multiply their wealth in as little time as possible. This simple equation is called your money velocity. The money velocity equation measures your ability to produce income as efficiently as possible. In its most simple form, the equation is equal to your output divided by your input. Now, what does this mean? In order to produce as much money as efficiently as possible, you need to maximize your output and minimize your input. Tying this back to us as an individual, the output is the money you can generate or your perceived value times a rate. Money is generated by how much someone is willing to pay you for a desired service. Your input is what you're trading for money, which in this case, it's time. So on that day at the car mechanic shop, I wrote down on that napkin that your perceived value times your rate, all divided by time, is your money velocity. So let's tie this back to the story with the car mechanic. I was willing to pay the senior mechanic double the amount that I would pay the main mechanic because I perceived his value for the service to be greater. Additionally, he was able to complete the job in a shorter amount of time, which only increased his money velocity and my perception of his value. Whether or not the senior mechanic knew this, the mechanic's service was almost 8 times more valuable and effective in generating money than the main mechanic. Now, to allow you guys to better understand this, let's go over an example for the same scenario where Joe is the main mechanic and Bob is the senior mechanic. Now, the numbers are arbitrary, but we'll agree that Joe's value is 1 times. The tire change is $200, which is the standard rate for this type of service, and he was going to do it over the course of 2 hours. Bob's value, on the other hand, is 2 times that of Joe's. The rate stays the same at $200 because it's the same service as Joe's performing, but he's able to do it over his lunch break, which is only 30 minutes. From using the equation, we can see that Joe's money velocity is 100 and Bob's is 800, making Bob's ability to efficiently make money 8 times greater. So after constructing this equation, I became curious, how does this equation actually stack up to me as a salaried worker? And there was a problem. The problem with a salary is that it's incredibly inefficient when applying it to the money velocity equation. According to the equation, the only way to increase your salary is to increase your perceived value and/or increase your rate. Now, it doesn't matter if you complete your annual goals in 3 months, 8 months, or even 12 months, because at the end of the day, you're still going to receive that same paycheck. The time aspect of the equation is fixed, therefore making your value and the rate the only variable subject to change. So I got to thinking, maybe this is why Elon Musk makes $0 a year from his salary and he gets paid through a compensation stock arrangement. With a simple click of a tweet, Elon can significantly increase his company's perceived value in just a matter of seconds. Talk about efficiency. Now listen very carefully here. The secret to building wealth is to increase your perceived value far beyond anybody else and to do it with as little time as possible. It doesn't matter if your job is flipping burgers or managing a hedge fund, 27 or 72 years old, it all applies. Businesses and individuals will pay you based on your value and time. In every job that you do, you can continuously improve completing the job in as short of time as possible without sacrificing quality. Once I discovered this equation and I flipped my mindset on how the wealthy actually make money, I began to create my own businesses focused on how I could create as much value as I could for myself to deliver that value with as little time as possible. Just by using the money velocity equation and focusing that on my business, I was able to retire at 26 and quit my job just to live off my income producing assets. Think about the value that you can create for other people and how you can deliver that value. Think about trading value for money, not time for money. To put it simply, and regardless of your area of work, become the best at what you do and deliver that value with as little of your time as possible. Time is finite, so use it wisely.